Some scouts are skeptical of New York Islanders prospect Cole Eiserman, but he's doing something that may silence some of the skeptics. We've got that and a whole lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey, and we have got a lot to discuss. We've got some Cole Eiserman news that may just put a little damper on some of his critics and quiet them up a little bit. We've got 2 players who may be the ultimate wild cards for this Islanders season, and a mailbag question about locker room issues potentially being a problem for the New York Islanders. We've got that and a lot more on today's show. Let's start with the Cole Eiserman news. And look, you've heard everydayers will remember about a week ago, we talked about the top prospects and players, what was it, under the age of 23, and Cole Eiserman, the Athletic, omitting him from their list, even though he is considered one of the Islanders' top prospects. And look, there are doubters about Cole Eiserman. Nobody, no scout, no expert questions his shot and his ability to put pucks in the net. But there are people who question what he does away from the puck, whether he'll play enough defense, whether or not he's a team player. There are issues out there, questions out there about Cole Eiserman and his long-term prospects for being on the New York Islanders. And quite honestly, I think a recent announcement from Boston University, where he is now entering his sophomore year, is addressing some of those concerns about his ability to be a team player and his ability to be a leader on and off the ice. And that is this. In his sophomore year, only his second season at BU, Cole Eiserman named an alternate captain by the team. And I think that is really a good thing. Head coach Jay Pandolfo, the former New Jersey Devils player, also kind of a no-nonsense guy. And by naming Eiserman one of 3 alternate captains for this year, again, in only his sophomore year, that really says something about the confidence that Pandolfo has in Eiserman. Now, Eiserman scored 25 goals as a freshman, helped BU get to the Frozen Four, only to lose in the finals to Western Michigan. And, you know, it is really good to see him get this honor, this recognition for his leadership qualities. And I'll tell you, this is not the only sign we've seen that says good things about Eiserman as a leader, as a teammate, as a player. And I'm not even going to talk about his goal-scoring ability here. But remember the World Juniors. And Eiserman made the team, again, was on the fourth line sometimes, but really very often was an extra forward who really most of his minutes he was a power play specialist. He got on the ice when the team had a power play and maybe saw some fourth line minutes in addition to that. And the good thing about that time and that role was, A, you never heard sulking or complaining from Cole Eiserman, and B, not only that, but he played his role exceptionally well. And, I think some critics of Cole Eiserman have him down as the next Josh Ho-Sang, a guy who was very, very talented, could clearly do a lot with the puck, but what he did without the puck wasn't always good, and his ability to buy into the team concept wasn't always there. And I think, unfortunately for Josh Ho-Sang, who I did interview a few times and who I liked talking to, who I was rooting for, but unfortunately for Josh Ho-Sang, I think he kind of figured out certain things a little later than he could have to salvage his NHL career. But it looks like Cole Eiserman is not doing that. He's figuring things out a lot sooner. Asking him to play a very specific, limited, unglorious role, he'll do it. Becoming an alternate captain in just his second year on the team, he'll do that. So let's cross off the he's not a good teammate or he does his own thing narrative from Cole Eiserman. Are there still issues that he needs to answer to become an NHL player? Absolutely. Does he need to put on maybe a few more pounds of muscle? Most 18, 19-year-old players do. Does he need to be more responsible away from the puck? Yes, he does. And hopefully, again, we see more progress in that area this season, his second year with BU. All of these are things that he has to learn, but most 19-year-olds also have different things they need to do to get to be NHL players. So cross off the bad teammate, the selfish label from whatever it is you think about Cole Eiserman. And I know one particular reporter at The Athletic, very skeptical of Cole Eiserman. Like I said, didn't even make the top list of prospects, of 23 and under players and prospects. I think this kid's going to prove a lot of people wrong. And again, it's not a given at this point, but it's moving in the right direction. And I've seen too many encouraging things to buy in to that negative narrative that some people have been putting out there. Real quick, some jersey number changes that have been announced. Matt Martin had his poker tournament, and so, there were place cards for the players with different numbers. Quickly wanted to touch on that. Jonathan Drouin, maybe a little controversially, going to wear number 29, which was Brock Nelson's number before he was traded. People will get used to it. We'll see how long Drouin wears that number, how long he stays on the island. But Brock Nelson's, no longer an Islander, that number available. Matthew Schaefer, as we know, wearing number 48, which is a number Lou Lamoriello, for some, reason that only he knows, prohibited people from wearing. So that's Matthew Schaefer's number. Emil Heineman wearing number 51, which Franz Nielsen is sort of the last regular guy to wear that number. Tony DeAngelo now going to wear number 77. He had 4 last year. And Isaiah George, if he makes the team, probably going to take 4. He wore 36 last year. Maxim Shabanov going to wear number 41, and Cal Ritchie number 64. And David Riddich most likely going to wear number 1, a number made most famous by, of course, Chico Resch. But, good to see that players now have the freedom to choose whatever number they want to wear. And these are some of the changes that are coming down the pike for the New York Islanders. And we'll, once rookie camp and then training camp get underway, we'll have more reports on a lot of things going on over there. We've got a lot more to get to on today's show. In our next segment, we're going to talk about 2 players who may be the ultimate wild cards for the Islanders, especially offensively. We'll talk about that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And hey, if you have a significant other that you share financial information with, Monarch Money can really help you simplify things and get you on the same page. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com using code LOCKEDONNHL. So I wanted to talk about 2 players who I think could be real wild cards for the New York Islanders. And when I say wild cards, I'm talking about players who we really don't know what to expect from them once the season actually gets started. And, it's players who could really take a step forward and make a difference for the team offensively, or they could be invisible and really let people down and be a disappointment. Now, the good news is that under Matthew Darche, there's more depth in this organization than there was a year ago. More players where if these guys don't work out, don't live up to expectations, if the wild card is boom or bust and they're a bust, there are alternatives on this roster who can at least attempt to pick up the slack. But ultimately, the 2 Russians, Maxim Tsyplikov and Maxim Shabanov, may very well be important potential difference makers for the New York Islanders. And look, Tsyplikov, we know he's got a dangerous shot. We know what he did in the KHL. Clearly last year, he was adjusting to life in North America, to the narrower NHL rink, the different style, and it takes time. Look, there is no substitute for doing it. You could practice, you could think about it, you could read about it, you can watch other people do it, but until you get out there on the ice and actually play not 1 game, not 5 games, but more and more games, that's how you actually learn how to make things work in the North American system. And last year from Maxim Tsyplikov, we saw some really good play. He had some moments on the power play. He goes to the net. He's not afraid to get into those dirty areas and to battle for pucks. There are a lot of things to like about Tsyplikov's game. But there were other times when he turned the puck over or took some foolish penalties because he stopped moving his feet. And Tsyplikov himself said this at Getaway Day, and everydayers may remember, he said, there are things I need to work on. And it's true. There are things he needs to work on. Last year, Maxim Tsyplikov, in his first season in the NHL with the Islanders, had 10 goals and 35 points, and he was a +4. He had 39 penalty minutes. He had 140 hits, which, by the way, tied him for 4th on the Islanders. And considering he missed 5 games, that makes it look even better. But ultimately, if Tsyplikov can go from 10 goals to, let's say, 18 or 20, and 35 points to, let's say, 45 or 50, if he can get into the middle 6 solidly and maybe on the second power play, you're talking about increasing goal scoring, which we all know was an issue for the Islanders last year as they were 28th in the league in that category, and maybe helping the power play, which, as we all know, was 31st in the league, next to last. Those 2 areas would be a big help. So here is year 2 of Maxim Tsyplikov with the opportunity for the big Russian to make an impact and maybe help the Islanders improve in some areas that have been lacking on this team. And then the other wild card is Shabanov. And it's similar in some ways between Tsyplikov and Shabanov, but different in others. Obviously, Shabanov is a year behind Tsyplikov as far as adjusting to the North American game. He has yet to play an NHL game, and it will be a learning curve. There will be an adjustment period. How long it takes him to adjust, and some people adjust quicker than others, will be a factor in figuring out what kind of an impact he can have. The big difference, though, between, 2 differences. Number one, Shabanov has Tsyplikov to talk to. Hey, what did you do last year? How did you make this adjustment? When this player, tries to take the puck away from me here, what did you do? Those are useful things that Shabanov can learn from Tsyplikov. And he really could benefit from his teammates' experience. But the big difference between the 2 of them is size. Because Maxim Tsyplikov is 6'3", 210, and Maxim Shabanov is 5'7", 5'8", 170 pounds, not as big a guy. So they play a different style. And I'm concerned maybe that Shabanov, because of his small size, may need more time than Tsyplikov to adjust to the north-south style of play and the more physical style of play that the NHL presents as compared to Europe and the KHL and playing juniors in Russia or what have you. I think Shabanov, however, may very well be able to also help on the power play, and maybe even that becomes his early season role as sort of a power play specialist, because you give a guy like a skilled player like Shabanov more time and space to operate, he can give you more productivity. And maybe the adjustment isn't as harsh when you're talking about the power play as opposed to 5-on-5, where it's more physical, less space to operate, and teams are a little more aggressive defensively. So, expectations for Shabanov, if he can give you 10 to 15 goals this year and maybe 35 to 40 points, that would be outstanding. I am not going to set unrealistic expectations. I think I was hoping for like 15 to 20 goals for Tsyplikov last year. We got 10, but I don't think it was a bad season for him. So give me 10 to 15 goals, 35 points would be great from Shabanov. Let him learn the system. But if he has a solid, even if it's just like by the second half of the year, he starts to click, it could be a big difference for the Islanders offense, for their power play. And again, those are two areas this team really needs to address and improve if they're going to remain competitive this year under Patrick Roy and in Matthew Darsh's first season as the general manager. It is not going to be easy, but I think it is very, very possible for these two players to make an impact on the New York Islanders. And we're going to find out really soon if they can do just that. We got a mailbag question coming up about the Islanders locker room chemistry and for our Islanders birthday of the day. A player who spent part of the 1979-80 season with the Islanders. Let's see if you can guess who this New Brunswick native is. He was a forward, but he only played a handful of games for the Isles. This is a hard one, so bonus points if you get it. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. And right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Maybe you like player props, or you like building a same-game parlay to win even bigger, or you could jump in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And if that first $5 bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel.com. Check it out today. So we have another dip into the mailbag, and this one is from Thomas from Queens, friend of the show. Always great to hear from you, Thomas. And his question is kind of general. Do you think there is a problem in the Islanders' dressing room? And, it's a fair question, Thomas. And I think the answer may be yes, but it's not in the way a lot of people think. I think the Islanders' locker room has been there's not a lot of discord there. I think this team is pretty unified and together, and most of these guys like each other, play for each other. I don't think that has been an issue. Now, was there an issue with Anthony Duclair between he and Patrick Roy at the end of last season? Yes. Hopefully that gets ironed out. There's never going to be 23 guys who are in perfect harmony. But under Lou Lamoriello, the issue, I think, in the Islanders locker room more than anything else was the fact that the Islanders, there was not enough competition. There was too much complacency. The reputation that the Islanders locker room had, whether it's true or not, but the reputation was, it's a country club. It's a cul-de-sac. Everybody loves everybody. Everybody gets along. but everybody's so comfortable that there's a lack of urgency. And we saw that, I think, more often than not in the fact that there were some players, some veteran established players who could play poorly and go out there and make the same mistakes over and over and over again, knowing because of the lack of depth in the locker room and in the organization, and because, you know, whether it was the coach or the general manager, their job was just secure. And, you know, part of it in hockey, in sports, it's competitive. And you need to have competition to bring out the best in most players. And I think the issue in recent years in the Islanders locker room was everyone was maybe a little too comfortable. Too many guys had long 6-7 year contracts, no trade clauses, no threat that they were going to be benched or sat. Now, I think it changed a little bit when Patrick Roy became the coach. I think he put in a little more accountability. And I think now under Matthew Darche, we're going to see more accountability. And there is more depth in this organization. It still needs more top-end talent to truly be a cup contender. But the Islanders probably have, you know, there's a 23-man roster. They probably have 25 or 26 NHL caliber players in the organization right now, whereas a year or two ago, maybe they had, you know, 19 or 20. So there are options now. And if somebody isn't producing, I think they will be held accountable more than they were in recent years. So, Thomas, I hope that answers your question. I thank you for it. Always good to hear from you. And don't forget, we'll get to the email address and all the information if you have a mailbag question at the end of the show. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. This one is a really hard one. This player only played 17 games for the Islanders during the 79-80 season, then played for the Colorado Rockies and was an original member of the New Jersey Devils, finished his career with the Quebec Nordiques. He spent those games with the Islanders in their first cup year of 79-80. I'm talking about forward Ivan Vator, 6th-round pick of the Islanders. Back in 1976, the Edmonton Oilers of the WHA also drafted him that year. Made his NHL debut with the Isles in 79-80 in 17 games, had 3 goals, 4 points, 24 penalty minutes, and was a -6. Ended up playing in 204 career NHL games, had 26 goals, 59 points, 401 penalty minutes, did not ever play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And his best game as an Islander, I think it's pretty easy. It would be November 4th, 1979. Islanders visiting the Winnipeg Jets, who had just entered the league from the WHA in Winnipeg. It was Chico Resch in goal for the Islanders. Gary Suitcase Smith, the goalie for Winnipeg. And with the score tied 1-1 late in the first period, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Ivan Vator, scored his second career NHL goal. Bob Bourne and Steve Tambellini with the assist. Islanders go up 2-1. In the second period, though, Winnipeg scored twice, took a 3-2 lead when our Islanders' birthday of the day, Ivan Vator, struck again, scored an unassisted goal 2.5 minutes into the third period. The game ends in a 4-4 tie as Brian Trottier put the Islanders ahead before Peter Sullivan tied it in the final 4 minutes and 1 second for Winnipeg. Chico made 26 saves, but our Islanders' birthday of the day, Ivan Vator, he had 2 of his 4 career goals as an Islander. He was a +1. He had 3 shots on goal. And again, those 2 goals were big ones as the Islanders got a point. So Ivan Vator is our Islanders birthday of the day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you anytime. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off season. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We'll have the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. Rookie's going to report real soon. We are a month and a day away from the Islanders home opener. So hockey is almost here, and we'll have all of it covered for you here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. Until tomorrow, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.